here we go.
Welcome to the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast. Pat and Scott just finishing out week 4 here in the NFL. A lot of news to talk about. We still have one more matchup coming in tonight. Obviously, Monday Night Football. We always record on Mondays, so there is still one more game to play. We are looking at the Rams versus the 49ers. Good divisional matchup. Defending champs against a team that has been one of the better teams, but has been bitten by the injury bug all throughout, and we'll see how that plays out. We're going to talk about injuries. We're going to talk about waiver wire coming up in this episode. This week was not too kind for me, fantasy football-wise. Last week I did pretty well. This week, not so much, but I would like to say that, in my league that I am going full tank, I am now 500, which is probably got a lot of people's antennas up. So wouldn't mind enjoying my 5 first rounders next year on top of maybe a championship. That'd be kind of cool. We'll see. It's only week 4. I know. Pat, how about yourself? How'd you make out this week, and how are things looking in your neck of the woods?
Pretty good as far as fantasy goes. I'm in, I want to say 9 leagues altogether. And I think I went 4 and 5, or I'm going to go 4 and 5, depending on how these outcomes tonight goes. There's one matchup that's still up in the air, but I think Kittle would have to have like the game of his career in order for the other person to come back and beat me in that one. So should end up finishing the week at 4 and 5. But definitely had some of those injuries bite me and made a really big mistake. And this is one of the pitfalls of playing in too many leagues. I heard the Christian McCaffrey news, that he was on the injury report, and they were playing the 4 o'clock window, and I wasn't really sure if he was going to play. Like there was still kind of doubt coming all the way up to kickoff, and so just to be safe, I took him out of my lineup and replaced him with AJ Dillon. And I was like, all right, if I find out McCaffrey's playing, I'll put him back in my lineup. Well, 4 o'clock rolled around, and 4:05, whatever the kickoff was for that game. And sure enough, the game kicked off. And actually, I think what happened was the Packers game kicked off first, and AJ Dillon ended up being locked in my lineup, and I ended up not being able to put McCaffrey back in there. McCaffrey outscored AJ Dillon by, I want to say 17 points in that league.
That's not
and
that bad.
I lost by 7. So yeah, that was a big boo-boo on my part there. My overall, he was I picked 101 in that league, and he was my first pick. And like a dingleberry, I left him sitting on my bench, and it ended up costing me a win in a league that I don't currently have a win in yet. So I'm going to go 0-4 because of that move. So
the
it hurts a little bit. Yeah, I've had some Keenan Allen in that league was out. I drafted Russell Wilson, so that hasn't really helped very much in that league. So it's been Mixon. I had Mixon. He's until this week hasn't really done a whole lot. So it's been a pretty rough start for me in that league. But this is what happens. You when you make mistakes and you don't pay attention.
I wouldn't know anything about that. So
yeah, Mr. I work all day on Sunday, and somehow you still have your lineup set. And here I am laying in bed so this actually happened to me as well this week.
What, you're laying in bed. What is on your phone while you're laying in bed?
Oh no, I mean I was like asleep. I stayed up pretty late Saturday night. But anyway, so we had the London game this week, the 9:30 a.m. start here on the East Coast, and I rolled over and looked at my phone. It was like 9:46. I was like, oh. So I checked my phone real quick, and sure enough, Alvin Kamara in my lineup, out of the game in London. I was like, man. So then I looked, and in our league of record, actually played against a guy who made the same mistake, left Alvin Kamara in his lineup, and ended up getting a goose for it. Strangely enough, in both of those leagues, I ended up losing in our league of record to the guy who left Kamara in and got no points. I end up winning in the other league that I left Kamara in and got no points in. So maybe I'm just going to start leaving one injured player in my lineup every week. Maybe that's the key to victory. Like everybody else kind of the rest of your team rallies around that player that's out or something. I'm not really sure what's going on, but
I don't know about that. I mean, do you use your turn signal when you drive? Because you have an alarm on your phone. You could always set that, hey, just pop up, make the changes, and then like go back to bed. It's not hard. It's all good.
Listen, man. Like I said, I stayed up late on Saturday. I didn't plan on sleeping until 9:46. That just happened. I get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning for, school, work, all that stuff. So I figured 9 o'clock, like the sun would be out. But I think what happened was it was crappy out. It's been raining here for the last couple of days. The sun peaks right in my bedroom window in the morning.
You used to shut my alarm off in college. I remember. Don't worry, dude.
Yeah, I like my sleep. Okay, leave me alone. All right?
I used to miss class because you were like, "Oh, your alarm was going off. I shut it off." Thanks.
Blame me for you failing college. I appreciate that.
I didn't fail. I chose to leave. I knew I was better than that place. And here we are.
You can't teach me anything.
Exactly. Yes. I'm a DIY guy. So Pat, you want to hit him with the socials real quick?
Oh yeah, sure. Make sure to follow us on social media. We mostly post on Twitter at the moment. We are in the process of starting a TikTok page as well. We'll see how that ends up going. But right now we are on Twitter at the 9Route1 and at Scott from Delco. You can also email the show. Our email address is the 9routeFFB@gmail.com. And you can check out our website where we have all of our previous episodes uploaded and a lot of different information on there as well. And that website is www.the9routeFFB.com. And now we're going to jump into the injury news from week 4. Time for the news. So Brian Hoyer went out. He was obviously in there to back up Mac Jones, who's out because of the high ankle sprain. Then Hoyer goes out with a head injury. I believe it was the second quarter or the third quarter where he went out, and rookie Bailey Zappi got to jump in there and take some snaps, and actually looked pretty good in that. But we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on Brian Hoyer. It just probably, Mac Jones may or may not come back this week, but I think even if he is out another week, Hoyer isn't a guy that you're really going to be picking up to play on any fantasy teams in the near future anyway.
Moving on to our next guy. Now, this name you may have heard of, Jonathan Taylor.
Nope, never heard of him.
Yeah. 1.3 tops probably in most leagues. And a little bit of an ankle injury yesterday. So right now, I think everybody, including the Colts, is, obviously sweating pretty profusely, worried about how he's going to make out. 1 to 4 weeks right now seems to be the initial. The ankle sprains are always tricky. Just coming off missing his first practice, basically since high school this past week. So obviously they're monitoring him. If you're going to look down the road to the concepts of what his backups are, you have different guys in play. You have Nyheim Hines, you have Deion Jackson, and obviously Philip Lindsay is on that roster and possibly going to get, move up from the practice squad and make his debut, I guess, to say, for that team. But as of right now, everything is still, very gray. It's only Monday. We'll see how things go. But Jonathan Taylor, that's a big one. If that lingers, or if anything else, you might want to circle your wagons a little bit and maybe even look to get some depth on your bench right now, even through trade, because obviously, he's a franchise type of guy. So you definitely got to watch what's going on with injuries to top running backs. Pat, you got another one, don't you?
Yeah, another top running back down. Javonte Williams, unfortunately, tore his ACL. It is now going to be out for the year. It's just, this was kind of the year that everybody thought and hoped that Javonte Williams was going to sort of take that next step to fantasy superstardom. And it just is unfortunate to see, these young guys. It happened to Saquon Barkley. It's happened to, a lot of promising young running backs. It seems like these ACLs just, they just give out on these guys. I'm not quite sure what they're putting on the NFL field, but it just seems like one after the next. Unfortunately for him, like I said, he's going to miss the rest of the season. Melvin Gordon should, take the bulk of the work moving forward from here, but we're going to talk about another guy who is probably going to be in the running back rotation in Denver there for the foreseeable future anyway. So we'll hit that up in the waiver wire portion.
Cordarrelle Patterson, some people thought he maybe was on the downswing, but has had some pretty impressive numbers for the first three and a half weeks, so to speak. He was questionable coming into the game. Was going to test out his knee prior to the contest. I was waiting for any definitive news myself, and they said he was good to go. They tested him out, everything was fine, and then he did not. He wasn't really able to be super effective. He was averaging 4.2 a carry. He did get a touchdown, so there was that. But it looks like he gave all he kind of could throughout the game. You had another 20 carries combined for Tyler Allgeier and Caleb Huntley. Avery Williams on the roster as well had one. So you had 21 carries to his 9, but he did get a touchdown out of it. Right now, I think this is a little, unnerving. I don't think they'll be in a big thing to hurry him back, but he was put on IR, so that's 4 weeks minimum. Remains to be seen how that offense is going to click with or without him. Obviously, again, you had some guys that picked up the slack yesterday, but Cordarrelle Patterson, IR 4 weeks. So definitely look for backups, for handcuff concepts, and scour that roster. That kind of winds down most of the running backs. Pat, you got a wide receiver who had a little turf toe injury yesterday, right?
Yeah, Trey Burks left the game. He was seen in a boot after the game. So, I mean, now doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad injury. They just may want to, stabilize a certain part of the foot or the ankle or whatever. So it's not the end of the world to be in a walking boot, but it isn't a good sign either. It's not like he walked out, just wearing his Air Jordans or whatever. So it still remains to be seen what the injury is, if he's going to miss any time, and if so, how much. So just keep your ears open for any information on Trey Burks. He seemed to finally be sort of coming into his own and getting up to be a part of this offense a little bit more. And if he misses time, there's a lot of good wide receivers on that team. Kyle Phillips in one that could definitely seize the playing time here. I know he's your guy, so he could definitely see an uptick in targets with if Burks misses any time. So again, definitely pay attention to that injury.
Next, probably I'll put them together just for the brevity and the concepts together. The Buffalo Bills, preseason Super Bowl favorites. Everybody looked at how amazing that offense was going to be, and the fact that how are you going to get all these guys factored in, mixed in? You drafted James Cook, and we know that they have to win this year. They've been getting bit pretty hard. They're secondary on defense, and now it's 2 wide receivers, Isaiah McKenzie and Jamison Crowder. Crowder's is the most serious, fractured ankle, out indefinitely. Highly unlikely. That could be something depending on how he responds to any type of surgery or anything. That could be playoffs when you maybe see him come back, if that. And again, he's not a kid anymore. He's 30 plus. Isaiah McKenzie, concussion. Right now, I think that's one that's also kind of an outlier because we just watched what happened with, we're not going to bring it up in the injury news. Everybody's aware of what happened to Tua coming off a concussion and the horrible injury he suffered on Thursday night. I think the league is going to kind of take it on the chin, obviously, based off of that, pardon the expression. But at the same time, I think most teams now are going to kind of take a step back and really slow things down for these guys because they know that they're going to be put in the spotlight if they rush somebody back. So Crowder, I think, don't worry about, he's going to be gone. You could drop him. I don't think you have to worry about him coming back regular season. Isaiah McKenzie, use him in the IR slot. It could be a week or two. Hopefully it wasn't anything major. Just kind of got the bell rung, but I don't see them rushing him back. You might want to look for, waiver wire or the next man up, so to speak, because now you're talking about 2 prominent wide receivers in the same offense coming out. And those targets outside of Stephon Diggs, they got to go somewhere. Gabe Davis has been nursing injuries. So we'll see how the Buffalo Bills circle the wagons, but they always do.
Last part of injury news, and we saved the best for last because unfortunately the injury news always ends up being a negative thing.
This is a good story. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Brian Robertson was the running back for the Washington Commanders, was cleared medically, which means that he can be activated off of the IR. They have, I believe, 21 days to do so, But so basically, once he's medically cleared, the clock starts for them to activate him, or they can designate him for IR again for another 4 weeks. But I think at this point, with the way Antonio Gibson has been looking and how his snap share has been sort of diminishing each week, I think Washington is kind of ready to kind of move on. And I don't know if Robinson's going to be ready right out of the gate to carry, the ball 12, 15 times a game. But just the fact that he's been medically cleared and can start to practice now, I think it's only a matter of time before he eventually replaces Gibson in that first and second down role in the Commanders' offense. And I think J.D. McKissic will still obviously get a lot of the passing down work. But Robinson, he could be the goal line guy, could be the first and second down guy, and he can catch passes. That's not something that is, outside of his, abilities in any way. I just think that Washington is one of those teams that has a pass catching specialist and will use him. So we're going to talk about, you want to just start with Robinson for the waiver wire segment. I'm going to jump right into the waiver wire.
Weekly waiver wire. Brian Robinson, obviously, being cleared medically, could be activated, obviously, as soon as this week. It does sound like, again, he got all the clearances you need. I think with that Washington offense right now, it's kind of tough. They started out, looked kind of like they might be a decent team. Carson Wentz looked rejuvenated. They put up some heavy offensive numbers in the passing game. Now you're looking at a team that they're 1-3. There were questions abound that Brian Robinson had overtaken Antonio Gibson in the preseason. Gibson's averaging 3.3 yards a carry, 43 yards a game. He's not being utilized as much. McKissic has out-targeted him 23-16 as far as the pass catching concepts. Gibson, 2 touchdowns to his name so far, obviously, but that's through 4 games, so that doesn't break down to be a consistent back role. It does look like that they will get him involved. I think Brian Robinson, it's going to take maybe a game or two. Obviously, he missed the end of camp, and physically he may be cleared, but you're coming back off of not a
multiple
knee,
gunshot wounds.
Yeah, not a knee, not an ankle. You're talking about a carjacking gone wrong. The fact that the guy, we're even talking about him, kudos to him. I don't root for Washington, Dallas, or the Giants, but for this guy, I was actually high on him coming out of Alabama and thought he was going to be that next Bama back. I think he's definitely worth a pickup. Don't start him right away unless you're forced to, but he should be on your roster if you can pick him up. I think in 2 weeks, he's probably going to be that guy. And if he's that tough to come back, just imagine that lineage: Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Brian Robinson's the next guy.
All right, so sticking with the running backs in sort of the waiver wire segment, another guy that should be picked up in pretty much every league at this point is Raheem Mostert. He's rostered in roughly 50% of leagues, looking at the four major websites as far as fantasy football goes. If he's out there in your league, though, he is somebody that you're going to want to put on your bench. He started out a little bit slow, coming back off of the injury last year that ended his season after week 1. But since week 1, he's outsnapped Chase Edmonds every single week. This past week, it was 46-18. He was given more of a workload, 15 rush attempts to just 5 for Chase Edmonds. Both players had 3 targets this week. Mostert's one of those guys who, we saw him with the 49ers. I'm sure you remember him back from when he played with the Eagles for a little while. He is he adds another speedster to that offense. I mean, you already got Waddle, you got Hill. This offense is already hard to contain. Now we're talking about, when you put these safeties back to contend with those 2 speedy wide receivers, now you got another guy, Mostert, who, when he hits the hole, man, he can take it and go. So I think the Dolphins are looking to just put as much speed on the field as they can. And Mostert is that guy. I mean, he's a guy who can, I think at the combine, this was many years ago, I think at the combine he ran a sub 4.4. So, definitely not the best running back in the world as far as, his other skills, but you give him good blocking, give him a hole, and he can take it to the house. So Mostert is definitely a guy that you're going to want to add right away. He's somebody who's going to have value for the remainder of the season as long as he can stay healthy, which for him has been a tall task. But maybe giving Edmonds some of those touches is what helps keep Mostert healthy this year. Who knows?
Another running back. This guy is, he was a preseason darling that he could have stepped up and had a dual committee role with David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert, probably gone in most of your leagues, probably based on what we talk about, because everybody listens to this podcast and they're smart. But moving forward, yes, I mean, he had a nice game this week. Again, had a great mop up duty, so to speak, when David Montgomery went down. But right now, if you really look at what he is in our league of record going into Monday night with a couple guys to play, he is number 13 in the running back rankings. And that's basically with, call it a game and a half of legitimate work. At the same time, if you look at the Bears, Pat, I have no clue how, but they are 2-2 with an offense that is anemic, but finally kind of showed some signs of life. So is David Montgomery the rock dragging them down? I don't know. Averaging 6.1 yards a carry. That's pretty good in the NFL. Now, some of that's inflated. He had a 52-yard run throughout the season, so some of that is there. 3 touchdowns already, so that's another nice part. And does get involved in the passing game out of the backfield, where he is 5 targets, 5 receptions, and averaging 7.4, and looks to be pretty solid out there. He has a 24-yard reception so far. I think this player right now is possibly turning into that guy. You might look for ways to branch out and make that offense better. And for whatever reason, he seems to just thrive. Whether last year we saw signs of him being a back, but Montgomery was the guy. Obviously, Montgomery can't stay healthy all the time, misses a couple games, and you could get Wally pipped pretty quick. Khalil Herbert, if Montgomery misses time, period, he's an RB1. I mean, there's no getting around it. Maybe low end, but at that rate, or like a monster RB2. At the same time, if Montgomery's back, minimally, he's going to be flexed, because I think this offense realizes that they need as much to move that ball down the field, with Justin Fields having some, issues passing and things of that nature. So for the running backs, Khalil Herbert, if he's somehow still out there, go get him. If you can buy him low from somebody in a trade and just kind of sweep them off their feet, definitely worth it. I mean, dynasty, redraft, whatever. Khalil Herbert, he's legit. He's a professional running back, folks.
Yes, they do pay him. That's true.
Yeah. Unlike us. Yes.
Another guy you may want to pick up is, and we mentioned this last week because we weren't sure whether Dalvin Cook was going to be able to play this Sunday, is Alexander Mattison. Again, I'm just mentioning him again real quick, just because Cook did play. He played a majority of the snaps in week 4, but did have another sort of partial separation of his shoulder, and they're just
take the arm off and play with one arm. God damn it!
But they're gonna have to limit Dalvin Cook's work a little bit, and if he does go into any stretch where he's out for a week or two, which that's very Dalvin Cook like to do, Alexander Mattison almost instantly plugs in as an RB1. So having him on your bench, especially if you're the Dalvin Cook owner, having him on your bench as a handcuff or backup is definitely a good idea.
Another guy we're going to talk about, and we did mention, obviously, Cordarrelle Patterson getting a little banged up and being forced to go on the IR. Tyler Allgeier, rookie. We knew he was something. A lot of people, again, if you're in Dynasty, there's no-brainer. Some people maybe picked him up just thinking, didn't know what to expect with that Atlanta Falcons offense, obviously being a little transitional, new quarterback and so forth with Marcus Mariota. He filled in nicely. Again, we talked about Patterson being slightly affected, but being downplayed now on IR. 10 carries, 84 yards. So 8.4 a carry. That would make him the greatest running back in the history of football if you multiply that over a 17-game season, and about 20, maybe 25 carries. But no, all kidding aside, he did get some preseason hype, definitely to keep up with Patterson. I think Cordarrelle Patterson's one of those players where it's hard to believe, like, for all the hype he never lived up to, and now he's turning into being one of the better running backs and skill players in football. Allgeier is definitely a guy to have. If this is going to be lingering with Patterson, he's going to be a guy who might overtake him in that department based on injury alone. But if he keeps this kind of a performance up, He had one catch on one target for 20 yards. So, he is multifaceted. I would say that Tyler Allgeier is a guy to keep on your radar. Definitely want to pick him up, even if it hurts somebody else, but take him now because he could be worth a lot more in weeks to come.
Yeah, another guy this is just a guy that you may want to throw on your bench if you have an open spot. This isn't somebody that I'm going to suggest going out and get. I don't know, Scott, how you feel about this, but I did want to mention Jerick McKinnon.
You love you some Jerick McKinnon. Go ahead.
Listen, I love me some numbers, and according to the numbers, he has outsnapped CEH every week except for this past week against the Tampa Bay Bucks. But leading up to this was the snap leader. But he is a guy who Andy Reid seems to trust and seems to like, and as well as CEH is playing, getting into the end zone finally this year, Reid keeps putting Jerick McKinnon on the field. And, if you remember that playoff run last year, McKinnon was the guy. And he's definitely, he's always been a talented guy, even back when he played for Minnesota and San Francisco. He's always been a guy that when he got his opportunity could score some points. And I think that if CEH continues the way he is, he may force Andy Reid's hand to play him more. But, if like I said, if you got an open spot, I have McKinnon on a couple of rosters. Haven't started him, but it's one of those things where if Edwards-Helaire goes down, you could be looking at you could be looking at a top 12, top 15 running back playing on a high-powered offense like the Chiefs.
Another name. Obviously, we talked about Javonte Williams going down hard with the knee injury. Hopefully, he can come back and be as explosive as everybody hopes. Mike Boone, yes, the Mike Boone. I know we're all wanting to make sure it's that guy. Formerly of the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, there's a pecking order as far as the running backs go for, the Denver Broncos. This team was looked upon as being, definitely a conference favorite by getting Russell Wilson on the roster. Right now, Melvin Gordon dealing with a little neck injury, I think, and, he should be okay to go. They're definitely going to look to boost that up, call up practice squatters and whatnot. But they were doing a committee approach. So if you have a banged up Melvin Gordon, who's going to be the guy, even if it's 70-30, I can't see it being that much of a split. You're looking at something where Mike Boone's definitely going to play a role. And they're going to try to make Russ cook. You're going to kind of force that issue at the same time. You have Sutton, you have Judy, you have KJ Hamler, you have every tight end but Okoye Bonham that he likes to throw to for some reason. Whatever, that is what it is. But no, at the end of the day, I think that Mike Boone is worthy of a bench spot. Obviously, more of a wait and see to see how that offense circles the wagons. They could go through this week and maybe go through the motions, but you could see them maybe look to make a deal, some type of trade, obviously, that now happens more than it ever did, when we were kids, Pat, in the NFL. So to see that that's a potential thing. But right now, knowing the playbook and being the number two in an offense that has the potential to be high powered and a banged up Melvin Gordon, Mike Boone could be a 7 target, 25 carry guy within a week until they send some reinforcements. So definitely should be considered more than just a blip on the radar.
Yeah, and Boone was considered a really talented running back when he was in Minnesota, but I mean, they just had 2 more talented running backs on the roster, so Boone didn't really get a whole lot of action out there. But everybody who has ever played with him or practiced with him knows that he's a talented guy. I think given the opportunity, he could absolutely smash with it. It's just a matter of getting the touches. So he's going to get his chance to be involved in the offense and show what he's got this year. So I mean, for every door that closes, another one opens, right? So hopefully Mike Boone will take advantage of this because he's been playing in the league for a few years now and hasn't really gotten an opportunity to show what he can do. So it is good for him that he's getting that chance now. But let's move into some of the wide receiver pickups. We're going to run through these kind of quickly. Wide receiver is one of those positions where you could probably add and drop guys every single week just based off of looking at what they did last week or the prior 2 weeks, looking at who they have coming up and, sort of playing matchups So we're just going to give you a couple of quick guys. We'll run through them real fast here just to give you an idea. Some guys that you may want to go out and pick up if you're sitting on, somebody like, Greg Dortch or, somebody who, you were
Lions
expecting.
got a lot of issues. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you got a DJ Chark or, anybody where you're just like, hey, these guys they're good, but they're replaceable. And here's some guys that you can replace them with. First up is going to be Michael Gallup and Dallas Cowboys. First game back, only had 3 targets, but caught 2 of them for 24 yards and a touchdown. He's definitely going to be more involved in the offense. And I think once Dak comes back from his hand injury, we could see Gallup really leap into that number 2 role in Dallas and be a very productive part of what is supposed to be and should be a good offense.
Yep. Correct. Speaking of quarterbacks, injuries, things cycling back, the 2022 Jets, these are not your Joe Flacco Jets anymore. Zach Wilson is back from injury and already had Corey Davis lead the team in targets. They have a lot of action players. They have a lot of potential stars on that team, but he's always been a constant. Tennessee Titans, he was always a guy. His knock has always been staying healthy, but when on the field has been very effective and has blossomed as he's gotten older, which happens with wide receivers. He leads the team in yards and touchdowns currently. Seeing Zach Wilson back, and as long as he's under center, he's going to look to the guys that he knows. He missed a lot of time. He missed camp. He missed the first, few games of the season. So, getting that rapport back with Elijah Moore, learning how to play with Garrett Wilson, Ty Conklin, tight end, who had been very involved, still was involved, but a little quieter this week. And, you have the running back duo of Michael Carter and Breece Hall. Right now, Corey Davis looks to be legit. I think he's definitely worthy of a roster spot.
Also, Rondell Moore made his season debut this week as well. Didn't have a huge game, but played 86% of the snaps in his first game back, which is really encouraging. And, we were just talking about Greg Dortch. He was a guy who everybody was sort of clamoring for on, the waiver wire the last few weeks after, the good season that he's had. I mean, it's definitely been a good first 3 weeks, but, the first week that Moore comes back, Greg Dortch is limited to 27 snaps and 1 target. So I think that kind of tells you, where he sits as far as the depth chart, more of a necessity than maybe a foundational piece that they're looking to involve in the offense every week. But if you like what you were getting from Greg Dortch, if you had him on your roster, Rondell Moore hopefully should be that same guy, maybe with a little bit more explosiveness. So definitely go out and get him and throw him on the end of your bench if he's available.
Another team with some wide receiver issues, and again, this is almost like death and taxes. The New York Giants. Right now, you have leading receiver Richie James. Yes, of all the players on that roster, that's who you were expecting was Richie James. No, I think a guy that might actually start to get involved sooner than later. Kadarius Toney. Saquon Barkley has had a renaissance season so far. If he stays healthy. Yeah, obviously he can carry a team. He can. He did it
31 times apparently.
Yes, yeah. That just tells you, the quarterback alone is a question mark. The backup got hurt. They brought him back in. There's a lot going on there, and somehow the Giants are 3-1. So yeah, the Giants are somewhat legit, but just can't get everything clicking. Kadarius Toney coming back sooner than later will help them. He looked pretty solid last year, had some flashes, and I think he's a player that if you are into the Giants, definitely worth a roster spot.
Next up, the last wide receiver we're going to talk about is George Pickens. Again, Pickens has been, he's one of those guys who came out of college with a lot of talent, but was injured, wasn't really sure how he was going to fit into the Steelers offense. I mean, I was kind of thinking that he was going to be third, in the pecking order. It was going to be Deontay, Chase Claypool, and Pickens. Seems like Pickens has just instantly leapfrogged Chase Claypool. Claypool put up a goose egg this week. I think he had, I think off the top of my head, I want to say he had 3 targets, no catches. So
2 targets,
no
catches.
Yeah. So Pickens had what, 7?
8 targets, 6 catches, 102 yards, 17.0 average.
So Pickens seems to be, the guy that he was hyped up to be coming out of college. I think if he is still on your waiver wire, which he should be because of all these people that I looked up for the waiver wire segment, Pickens was one of the guys who was not rostered in as many leagues, as some of these other. Obviously, the injured guys weren't rostered as much, but as far as the guys who are actually playing, Pickens was available in about 60% of leagues still. So if he is available on your waiver wire, definitely throw him on here because the next guy we're going to talk about, and I'll jump right into this one since you got to talk about him last week, is our first quarterback pickup of the week, which is Kenny Pickett. So now that Pickett should be the starter moving forward, he came in after halftime of that Jets game. We don't know yet what Kenny Pickett is going to do in the NFL. He could be, the next Joe Montana. He could be the next Mitch Trubisky, unfortunately for the Steelers.
Nah, he will never be Mitch Trubisky.
Well, he threw, 3 picks in his first, in one half. So
he did, and that's what's scary. For throwing 3 picks, he still had a better QBR, better rating, ran for 2 touchdowns. Trubisky just like deer in headlights. It's a shame.
Yeah, but I think Pickett definitely has so this could go either way. The offense could get worse. I mean, I don't see how it gets that much worse. They were already pretty bad. Or this could be a dramatic change and a dramatic shift in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And these pass catchers could come alive. I mean, we could technically put Chase Claypool on here as a pickup, just as a speculative ad for somebody who, maybe Pickett and Claypool have, a little bit more of a connection, than Claypool had with Mitch Trubisky. Who knows? But I think in this instance, Kenny Pickett is an unknown. And at this point, if you're hurting a QB, I would 100% pick him up because most of the guys that are out there on the waiver wire, there's not really a ton of guys who are really putting up a lot of points, maybe a Jared Goff or something like that, but he's rostered, believe it or not, in a lot of leagues. But there's really Geno Smith, you could pick him up after the week he had, but I don't see too many more of those weeks happening, but we'll see. But anyway, Pickett is a guy who could drastically change the Steelers offense, and it could be good for all of these wide receivers. You don't know that. If you pick him up and he ends up, completely being terrible and, the Steelers end up going back to Trubisky, God forbid, but let's say that happens. What have you lost? You know what I mean? You've taken up a roster spot on the end of your bench for a few weeks, but if he comes in and turns into the next Dan Marino, which I think is, maybe what the Steelers were afraid, to not pick him in that first round. If he becomes the next Dan Marino, I mean, that's who you now have on your roster. So if you are struggling at quarterback, or even if you have a good quarterback, I mean, it doesn't hurt to throw Pickett on your team and see what happens at the very least.
Another quarterback, but this is injury-based. Teddy Bridgewater, obviously Tua. I got to think they're going to sit him for a week, possibly 2, to make sure he's okay after what happened. And hopefully he is legitimately okay. Teddy Bridgewater came in and outside of the pick at the end of the game, he filled in nicely. Coming in to that kind of a spot is always tough for any quarterback. But he was 14 to 23, 193 yards, threw a touchdown, threw a costly pick, and they were pressing. They were trying to come back in that game, so it's kind of tough. He's a veteran. He carried Denver for a couple weeks there last year. We've seen him before in Minnesota. He looked really good back in the day, and then a gruesome knee injury kind of really railroaded his career. To see him in this offense, if he's going to be a starting quarterback in this offense for a week or two, he's got top 10 potential just based on the skill players around him. Obviously, we talked about Mostert. You have Chase Edmonds. You have Tyreek Hill, I just said. Jalen Waddle, Gesicki at tight end. They make things happen down there. That offense looks pretty legit, professional ready. 3-1 team. They are going to do what they need to do to win. He's a quarterback that could help you out in a week or two. Obviously, bye weeks are coming. I believe this is week 1 of bye weeks. Am I not correct? Next week
they start week 6.
Week 6. So yeah, next week. I mean, to have him on your roster for a week or two. He's also if you're a Tua owner, he's a guy that I think you almost want to look to a handcuff at this point because you don't know physically what's going to happen after the horrible 2 weeks in a row that he had some serious concussion issues. So I would say Bridgewater definitely worth picking up. Stash him on the bench, worth a start this week. I would probably think so.
Yeah, I think Bridgewater can be a spot start for you, especially with all the weapons in Miami. There's the potential of him, throwing a quick slant and somebody taking it to the house with all the speed they have on that team. So I don't mind Bridgewater as a filler for Tua. One tight end real quick that will hit is David Njoku. If he's still available in your league, he wasn't available in a ton of leagues. He was about 45% in most leagues. He's been rostered, but if he's not, and you're sitting on a guy like, Dawson Knox or Kyle Pitts or, one of these tight ends who just hasn't really performed, up to what you were hoping, I guess, when you drafted him, go out and grab David Njoku. He is second on the team in targets. Had that huge week a couple of weeks ago where he led the team, had that long touchdown. The guy is incredibly athletic. They just paid him a ton of money. Jacoby Brissett is known for throwing the ball to the tight end as much as, he possibly can. It's sort of like his security blanket, which, that's kind of what the tight end is for most quarterbacks. But he's definitely a guy who he's continuing to get a ton of targets. Where's he at? He right now he's currently the 9th most targeted tight end in the league. So you're looking at a top 10 tight end target. When it comes to tight ends, if you're not, you don't have Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or, somebody like that who's just, guaranteed to, pretty much put a bunch of points on the board. Not that anybody's guaranteed. Mark Andrews only had 2 points this past week, but you're looking at these elite tight ends. If you don't have one of those elite tight ends, you're kind of stuck with this like sort of muddled second tier of tight ends that includes guys like TJ Hawkinson and Zach Ertz and Darren Waller and, maybe George Kittle. But, David Njoku is definitely up there. He's a guy who without a doubt could finish in the top, 6 or 7 in tight ends this year and is already looking promising. And to top it off, is going to be getting a quarterback upgrade at some point in the season. So, definitely a guy that I want to have on as many rosters as I possibly can.
I concur.
All right. Well, that's all we have for our injuries and our waiver wires for technically week 5, I guess, right? This is going into week 5.
Yeah.
Throw the socials out there one more time. You can follow us on Twitter at the9route1 and at Scott from Delco. Also, go check out our website, www.the9routeFFB.com. Real quick, before we sign off, I'd like to say thanks to Mickey's Pub in Tuckerton. If you are in the South Jersey area, make sure to check Mickey's out. 327 East Main Street in Tuckerton. Have a lot of great food and drink specials, especially on Sundays during football. Have all the games on there. So, like I said, if you are in the area, please check them out. Let them know that we sent you. And enjoy, because it's a great place to go watch football and hang out.
And kids eat free while we're doing this show right now. You could be there eating free while your kid could be eating free while you're hanging out there having a good time.
You could be eating free too if
adults got to buy a meal. Normal fare for a restaurant. I know a little thing about it, but yeah, if your kids are under 12, kids eat free every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. That's pretty good. That's a good spot. Mickey's, you're the man.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us for this week. Do you have anything you want to throw in there before we head out?
Oh, again, we appreciate everybody listening to the show. Like and subscribe. Follow us on all social media. We're looking to expand the brand sooner or later. We are definitely trying different things and looking to move things in different ways. All the information can be redundancy. We're just appreciating that you guys listen to us and maybe take a few of our tips and tricks that we're giving you right now and use them to help you win your league week to week and on an annual basis. For Pat, I am Scott. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Going to be talking about our start sits going into week number 5. You'll hear that very soon here on the 9 Route, folks. Take care. Peace.